3. So hi there, everybody, and wherever you are in the world, I'm Samantha Amit, and I'm here together with Daphna Horowitz, who is my colleague. Daphna and myself are both the leadership coaches, and today we're going to be speaking about how you can work better with your teams. And Daphna has recently written an article about it on LinkedIn, which you'll see in the comment below. So Daphna, would you like to introduce to us why it's so important to pay attention to how we're working with our teams now in a virtual way?
Yes. So we all know how we've overnight been able to implement these changes in our work environments where people are now working from home, people are working remotely. I think it's definitely something that we've seen before, especially in global teams, managers who are managing global teams. That's been happening, but now it's been an overnight change that everybody's doing it. Even if you live next door to each other, you still have to get onto a virtual system or platform to work together. And that's created a very interesting dynamic. So on the one hand, for employees who are sitting at home and having to work remotely, and on the other hand, for the managers who need to lead these remote teams and create a culture, an environment, delivery of results and high performance in this kind of in a virtual environment, virtual setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but I've found that people have been finding it quite challenging with so many different dynamics, the dynamics of having kids at home with all the meetings, working long hours, and finding the right balance of how many meetings to have. Some people are alone actually and are feeling very lonely. So how do you find that right balance, and can you over communicate?
Yeah, so the important thing here is exactly that. It's the over communication element, because people working remotely are struggling and finding it incredibly challenging. And exactly what you said around the children being at home and managing boundaries. And now because you're at home and working, where is work time and when is work time and when is it not? And can your manager just phone you up and say, I need this right now if it's 9 o'clock in the evening? All that stuff needs to be negotiated. And then there's the manager who needs to understand how to lead and be very aware of the challenges that their team is going through. So the key to managing this, in my mind, is dialogue. And I always say that. I always say rather over communicate than under communicate. Again, there's always a balance, because you don't want to constantly bag your people with all this over communication. But when I talk about over communication, I really mean check in with your people, make sure that you have specific times for connecting, hear them out on what's going on for them, how they're finding the situation, how they're managing with their challenges, what are the structures that they need to set up, and even from a logistical and physical space, where are they working? Can they disconnect from, their home life to going to work, or from their work life to going to home? The struggle over laptops, because kids are at home doing online learning. So who's using the computer when? It's really a huge, complicated situation that we need to navigate and manage. And communication is key.
What's coming up for me as you're speaking is a few things that I want to highlight. One of them is what you mentioned, specific times. I think it's so important to actually plan these meetings and not just ad hoc have the meetings, because, if you're at home and you've got 5 people at home, it's, you want to have those scheduled and respect people's times. So to have those boundaries. And another thing I'm noticing is, I don't know why people don't think of it, but they're having back-to-back meetings. There are no buffers. So if a meeting's 60 minutes, if they would just say every meeting that's 60 minutes is going to be 50 minutes or 55 minutes, you've got a 5-minute bio break. And finding that, as you say, this over communication is important, but if we planned a little bit, so specific times and planning the meetings so that they can be more focused meetings and not just going off. I think what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think you're mentioning 2 things there. One is making sure that your meetings are focused on what needs to happen, because right now the only way to interact is through these Zoom meetings. So there's a lot of them being scheduled. So firstly, make sure that you are focusing on the right things. Secondly, make sure that you need to be at this meeting. So I was having a conversation with a client the other day who said to me, actually, she started to really look at every meeting and say, do I need to be there? And to start saying no, because she would have these 3 and 4 meetings coming in at the same time, and she was feeling really overwhelmed about that. So that's the one aspect. And then the other aspect is those buffer times, which are critical. But I think that that is something that managers don't do well anyway. Even when they were office bound, it was a huge issue then. So
right. But I think you mentioned it in your article, if I'm not mistaken, is that usually, you know, when you're in the office, you have this time to, at the coffee corner or whatever, you say hello. So you don't have this now. And that's why it's so important to just go back to the over communicating, even having that 15-minute check-in that you speak about in your, to have that daily scheduled with your team is really key. So I want to thank you for this amazing article, and do read it and comment on it, who's ever watching this now. Daphna loves comments.
Thank you. Yes, I do. I love engagement and participation and questions. So absolutely, you're invited.
Yeah. So let us know what changes you're making if you are doing the 15-minute daily stand-ups, if you are putting in these buffers and boundaries, if you're eliminating certain meetings. We'd really like to know. Yeah. And thank you, Daphna, for your time today. And maybe we'll do this again soon.
For sure. Looking forward to it. Bye.
Thank you so much.